Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Beto O'Rourke finds runway Democrats, and he's funding them. And he has, powered by the People's Group, bankrolls Texas House Democrats, lodging and travel as they flee to block GOP redistrict plan. And Texas Governor Abbott petitions the state Supreme Court to expel Democratic House leader who fled to stall Republican legislation. Immigration officials released Young Song Gul, a Purdue student wrongfully detained during a visa hearing, sparking outrage and calls for ICE reform. American-born Angelos described traumatic wrongful arrest during ICE sweeps, alleging officials acted ready to attack. Former President Trump, or current President Trump, my apologies, vows to lead humanitarian aid distribution in Gaza, criticizing current efforts as failing starving civilians. All of this for you guys this morning, and we're going to do a further breakdown of how Gaza is divided but also connected. And I think it's going to be worth listening to. So again, stay tuned. So here's a bold move from Powered by People, which is a group, Beto O'Rourke, political mobilization arm. They've been funneling money to Texas House Democratic Caucus to help pay for lodging and transportation costs incurred when lawmakers left the state to block the redistrict plan of the GOP. And this isn't paying members directly. It's enabling logistics to empower dissent in Texas politics. And I'm likely to believe that they did this through organizations, because more times than not in politics, anytime you do anything personal that can link back to a personal bank account, they can come up and trump up all sorts of charges. So again, they do these through organizations and in some regards through private donors and donations. So it cannot be directly tied to any political figure. And again, this is all behind of Democrats being on the run because of the GOP's efforts to unseat at least 5 Democrats, would this give them a majority vote in any sort of legislation and any sort of bills or policies that they tried to pass without any backlash. In the state of Texas, the Democrats will not have a chance if they withdraw these 5 seats from the Democrats. The GOP will have ultimate power, so to speak, in their voting, in their influence, in the power plays that they will make. So again, I understand why the Democrats are doing this, because this is a tug of war of power when it comes to these two groups. Now, granted, Texas have always been a red state for a very, very long time. I was trying to recall the last time that Texas turned blue, if any, but Texas, Missouri, a lot of those Midwestern and Southern states have been red states for a very, very long time. And if they turn blue temporarily. In some regards, they turned so-called purple, where they were split. But when I look at this, I'm still diving into how this will benefit Democrats, because we already know how this would benefit the GOP. We already understand how this would benefit the Republicans. So again, 50 Democrats, they have fled out of the state of Texas, and they went to places like New York and Chicago. I definitely wouldn't go to New York. I probably will go to Chicago or something like that. I wonder if any of them went to Washington State, or even California. These are a lot of the blue states that will protect them, quote unquote, hide them. And granted, Governor Abbott doesn't have any power outside of Texas. His only hope is to have a meeting with President Trump and state that because they are stopping this quorum. Again, this is a big meeting so they can uphold these 5 seats and unseat 5 Democrats. They call it a quorum, but again, they already know the outcome of the quorum if they were to be in session. And again, they're trying to hold out until August 19th. And the reason why this is important to all of the people outside of Texas is because it can happen in a state near you. And believe it or not, I believe this is important for whether you are a Republican, you claim yourself as one, or you are a Democrat, and you claim yourself as one, because you should not want to have one group with ultimate power. There's a lot of people who are so-called conservative under the Republican Party who are not politicians. You may consider yourself as conservative, but you've seen the benefit of some liberal laws, and then vice versa. You are Democrat, you are a liberal, and you've seen some benefits from some conservative Republican laws, and I think that's important as well. There should be some balance of power. See, I never dive into the founding fathers and how they constructed these different levels of government and how things operate, how one political party can have ultimate power, as we look at the current administration, where they are the majority in the Senate, they are the majority in the House, and the president is a Republican. And this has happened even with the Democrats as well. I'm not stating that this is bad, but I just wonder the reason for this possibly is because they would never get anything done, because they'll always be arguing, stating that their claims or their policies and their legislation is more important, is more vital for people, more vital for the country, et cetera, et cetera. So when I look at this, on one hand, I understand how politics is governing America. And then on the other hand, I wonder about the constant power struggle every 2 to 4 years, whether it be on a local, state, or federal level. That's just some kind of the things that I look at here. Because Governor Greg Abbott has asked the Texas Supreme Court to expel the House Democrats leader who fled the state. And this is an escalation using legal avenues to punish political dissent. And what does it say about Texas democracy when quitting, when they're quitting the floor becomes grounds for expulsion? And this is what I say when we keep using the word democracy, democracy, democracy. And then when I state the Constitution never talked about any sort of democracy. It never talked about any sort of democracy. People were telling me, well, America is a hybrid. It is a republic democracy, or a democratic republic, or something in those lines. They try to combine the two. No, it is not. All of us constitutionists, and we live and die by the Constitution and the laws therein. This is a republic, because you don't have an ultimate vote for every single thing that your state does, every single thing that your county does, every single thing that your country does. See, we the people supposedly have power, but we only have it 2 to 4 years, ladies and gentlemen, because outside of that, these lawmakers, these politicians, they make all the decisions once you put them in office. You didn't help President Trump select his cabinet, did you not? Yeah. You just had to go along and get along whatever he said once you elected and selected him to be the president of the United States of America, just as well as a governor, just as well as other prominent people. See, there's a certain level of election and selection that occurs in all levels of politics. And once that person is the face of whatever political position they're running for, and once they are in place, whether it be a councilman or alderman or a governor or a president, once they're in office, then they select and pick who they will work with. You don't have a choice. And also, once they are in office and they tend to do things that you may or may not agree with, you don't have a say so. You don't have a vote, because these are the representatives that have been elected based upon your vote. If this was a 100% pure democracy, then every single piece of legislation, we the people would have a vote. Now, however, they organize this, how we will vote via computer, biometrics, eye scan. I don't know, because again, that would be very cumbersome if we had to always line up every time a piece of legislation came across the governor's desk or came across the president's desk. But we do not have ultimate power. There's 350 million people legally in America that will have the opportunity and the rights as citizens to vote on legislations, but we do not. We leave that up to the representatives, Congress, do we not? And then if it comes across the president's desk, he has the power to sign it into law or to veto it. So again, I really dislike whether it be Republicans or Democrats or the party that really never has any power, the independents, that we live in democracy. It's a fallacy. It's fake. The word is just sounds nice. Oh, we in a democracy, and you hear the most intelligent, smart, powerful, influential people keep saying democracy, democracy, democracy. If that's the case, then show me the word democracy in the Constitution as it pertains to our government. So again, Democrats are fleeing Texas because now Governor Greg Abbott has asked the Texas Supreme Court to expel House Democratic leaders who have left the state because they are preventing the quorum, which may haphazardly unseat 5 Democratic seats and then give the GOP ultimate power. This is all about power. It's always been about power in some regards. So a Purdue student from South Korea torn away during what was supposed to be a routine visa hearing in New York was transferred to Louisiana and held for 5 days before being released without bail. And church leaders and New York politicians condemn what they call an unjust and traumatic error. And here's the question, ladies and gentlemen. Did she outstay her visa? Was she on a work visa? So let's get into it, because I think this is important for other people who are in the country, illegal and or legal. It states here that reunited with her family Monday night in downtown Manhattan. It comes after Go, we're just going to call her Go for short, who was handcuffed by immigration and customs enforcement agents upon leaving her visa hearing, spent several days in a facility in Louisiana, according to the ICE database. It goes on to state here that Go came to the U.S. in 2021 on a religious dependent visa for children or spouses of religious workers temporarily in the country. Her attorney, Mazra Joseph, Go, whose visa had been extended until December, was attempting to renew the visa because her mother had changed employers. It isn't clear why the student was targeted for detention. Now, it states here, I want you to read this very important line here. It said, whose visa had been extended until December. And it states that I'm just so grateful for the support that I've had. Go told the crowd of supporters after she hugged her family. ICE did not immediately respond to NBC News' request to comment on the reasons behind Go detentions, and the Department of Homeland Security did not provide the family a reason for Go's release. And Joseph said DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin previously described Go in a statement as an illegal alien who had overstayed her visa that expired more than 2 years ago. So how did this mix-up happen? And what December are they talking about? See, again, it says in 2021, then it says they extended to December. So what December they're talking about? 2021 December, 2025 December, 2024 December. And so as we dive deeper into the story, it says with her mother, Carrie Kim, came to the U.S. for Kim's work. Kim, who became the first woman ordained in the Seoul Diocese of the Anglican Church of Korea, had been invited to develop the Episcopal Church connection to Asian communities. An attorney for the Episcopal Diocese of New York, where Go's mother is a reverend. It was an initiative to begin a new ministry reaching out to Asian clergy, Asian families, and to help strengthen and grow the aspect of our Episcopal and Anglican community, Davis said. You know, not to get on religion and not to get on people who come to America to start a new life, because again, there's a lot of Americans in other countries to start a new life. But have you guys ever noticed that when immigrants and foreigners come to America, that they all gravitate to one area and then they start to expand that one area, and you'll have a Chinatown, a Korean town, African town, this town, that town, and they set up these enclaves where they only talk once one another. They create their own churches, they create their own business, and you never see that in these other countries. See, I lived in Korea for 4 years, and the only American businesses that I was privy to are the ones that was on base. Now, granted, were there American business in the economy of Korea? Yeah, there were a few. Were there American business in Japan when we went? Yes, there was. But these businesses in Japan, even though they were selling American breakfast, American food, all of these businesses was ran by Japanese. When I used to go shop down in what we call the Ville, outside of every, almost outside of every military installation in Korea, they have what they call the Ville. And the Ville, so majority, two things. It sold clothing, and I won't say that it sold women. Well, it patriated to a point where you were going to what they call these drinky bars, and most of these women were from the Philippines, and you would pay $10 to $20 just to sit and talk with these women from the Philippines. Now, granted, there have been various stories of people sex trafficking as well as illegal prostitution, and a lot of these so-called drinky bars will get shut down. But what happens is you go into these bars and there's these women wearing skimpy clothing, wearing lingerie that entices young military men. Sit down, pay you $20 for, maybe one or two songs, and you're having discussions about whatever. I don't know what you can possibly discuss. But I guess it was an outlet for military men to go in and just speak to the opposite sex, because majority of military personnel in Korea are men. And there's no large population of American American female soldiers. And if they are, they tend to be married more times than not. So again, this was an outlet for men to have interactions, okay, non-sexual. The military was not condoning that. They even had military officials to shut down a lot of these places. Where am I getting at? You never really see large populations of Americans in other countries and then set up communities. Here in the area where I live, not this particular community, but I've been through at least 3 East Indian communities, at least, where the majority of the houses and community are people from the country of India, the continent of India, and all of the stores they're in. And I'm not stating that's a problem. The only thing I'm stating is that people come to this country to be amongst their own people and not Americans. Yes, they will do business with Americans. That's their foot in. They have to go to the banks. They have to go to here. And granted, here's another thing. And these so-called diaspora wars that we are witnessing between foundational Black Americans and Black immigrants from all these other different countries. And they're saying how they come to our country and they do better than us. It's hundreds of videos now that there is a rift between between our two or multiple Black groups. And my only rebuttal to when people from other countries come here and they do better than Americans or they do better than Black Americans is that you're referring to the top 10% of that nation and you're trying to compare it to the bottom 90% of this nation. Is not a comparison. Because when people tell me that, I'm a first generation this, I'm a first generation that, and my family came over here with 2 nickels and lint in their pockets, then how in the hell in 2 years are you a multimillionaire? Oh, we work hard. It's more than that. You receive government assistance. Well, no, we had family over here. We had a community over here. They put us up in their houses, and we started off as Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, and we worked at McDonald's, and we scraped and we saved and we compounded and we invested. And now 2 years later, we are multimillionaires. Black Americans, white Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, who have been here for multiple generations. Don't get me wrong, family. I want to make sure that this is not directed or pointed at people of a different ethnic, demographic, or race, because again, we have Americans of all races who've been here for generations. But I'm talking about people who've been here up into 2 generations. They will give you these stories of how hard their parents and their grandparents work. No, there's always been United States government assistance for immigrants in any capacity, work visas, student visas, religious visas, special, I forgot the terminology that they use with Melania Trump, the president's wife, and how she got to stay over here on a visa and became a resident and then a U.S. citizen, no less, because she was a model, but she wasn't very popular at all. And then, the Einstein visa, that's what it was. I don't know what value she brought to America to have an Einstein visa. I'm totally against that. She could have went another route, but to get the Einstein visa, what scientific, engineering, high level technology, whatever it may be, to garner a visa just because you was a model. Now, granted, you in cahoots at the time. Mr. Trump, very powerful businessman, he could probably waiver anything. He probably get anything approved. But nonetheless, as I look at these stories, family, I just look at the people who are so darn anti-American. Then those people are so anti-Black American, come over here, raise their nose up at us, and look down as if they are better, but they are in our country. Get the hell out of here. You came over here because your country's economy is trash. Your country economy could not create opportunities. Because when you ask these people, and this is mostly directed at Black immigrants, and this is not to be decisive, because again, this doesn't relate to all Black immigrants. This relates to those tethers and those anchor babies who come over here and act as if they are better than Black Americans because they came over here in 1 or 2 years and now they got degrees and they got 6-figure and 7-figure jobs, as if they didn't receive assistance. Then so if you're so intelligent, if you're so better, then why could you not create the same opportunities that you have here in America that my ancestors have built and paved the way through social, civil rights, and economics for you to thrive in our country? Why couldn't you do that in a country that is majority you, that is majority your race, your color, your ethnic, your background, your culture? Why couldn't you do that? You had to come to America. Everybody wants to come to America and set up their own community of their own people and then thrive in a country that people say they don't even like. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go back to my own country. When? You've been here 20 years. Oh, well, when I retire. So you're gonna make all your money and become rich in America. Take your riches back to your country and then multiply that times 5, times 6, times 7, times 8, times 9. When I went to Vietnam this year, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I believe that for every American $1, it was like 22,000 Viet Dong. Soon as me and my military buddies landed on ground, we were like, we're rich, we're millionaires. And Ho Chi Minh City, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, I just call it Ho Chi Minh City because it sounds great off the tongue. When we got there, I was expecting something totally different. Ho Chi Minh City is built up, clean to, it's good. It's built up. I'll just keep it that way. It's a built up city. But when I tell you this, when you are an American and you go to a country that one of the natural or official languages aren't English and things don't operate similar to things that are in America, it's a turnoff. Now, don't get me wrong. The Vietnamese people, very nice people. Did I notice any racism? I didn't incur any racism. We got into Grabs, also known as Ubers, but they use Grab in certain parts of Asia. It's just their form of Uber. But nonetheless, did I experience any racism? Not to my knowledge. People left us alone. We left them alone. Even in Japan, same difference. Had a great time in all these countries. Didn't really experience any racism. But don't get me twisted, family. When I came back to America, things felt normal. When you're in another country and you're just vacating, I'm there to indulge in the culture, the food, the people, have a great time, go to some sites, museums, do some activity, just really enjoy yourself and understand people from where they live. Because when you're here in America and you are dealing, with certain groups, and because, this woman here is Korean, there's a certain level of prejudice. There's a certain level of racism that people come to this country because they accept and adopt some sort of white ideology, maybe because of television, maybe because of their own personal thoughts, maybe because of what the system tells them that Black people and other people who have dark melanated hue skin color are. Maybe that's the reason. Because in Korea, I've had pleasant interactions. Don't forget, I lived in Korea for 4 years. I had pleasant interactions. I remember I met some guy on the subway. He actually worked for discovery.com, but he was Korean, and we had a great conversation. But when you on the Korean subway, sometimes you'll have some of the elderly Koreans look at you, just stare at you, and when you stare at them back and you just stare, they eventually look away. Now, I don't know if that's part of their culture, but maybe they are intrigued, maybe they're interested, maybe they're just wondering. But as an American, when you stare at somebody, it's kind of rude. But that's probably not the way they view it. But did any Korean ever try to attack me? No. Did I feel discriminated upon in some regards? Yes. In Korea, yes. There's discrimination and a little bit of racism, but was it consistent each and every day, each and every month, each and every year? No. I would say I probably experienced racism in Korea out of my 4 years, maybe 5 times. Now, that's pennies, pebbles compared to America. I'll just say that. So I'm not saying anything ill will about Korean people. I enjoyed my time over there in some regards. I was in the military, so I trained most of the time, and I was up north. Okay, not until my last year that I came down what they call Area 4, Camp Humphreys, or the Hump, as people will know it. But again, I just wanted to put those things out to you, ladies and gentlemen, because I just think that it was interesting nonetheless. Okay. But again, there's been a lot of people in downtown LA, citizens like Andrea Velez, Luis Hipólito, and Adrian Martinez were arrested during ICE raids described by Velez as a kidnapping, and charges were later dropped amid civil rights outcry. Footage, contracted official testimonies, and the victims say they were traumatized and had their lives disrupted. Well, welcome to Black America. Welcome to Black America, because this has been happening to us since the inception and prior to of this country. Stop and frisk, vagrancy papers, freedom papers. This has been happening to us since the inception of this country. So all non-white people, this is what Black Americans have been facing ever since and before the inception of this country. So you're welcome, because we've told you this time and time again, and this is why the reason why Black Americans for decades have been marching in the street for voter rights, for civil rights, for justice, on so many accounts. And all of you guys turned a blind eye. Oh, well, it's not happening to us Asians. Not stating all. It's not happening to us white Hispanics. Not stating all. It's not happening to us light brown Hispanics. Not stating all. Because this is not all inclusive. This is for those people who kind of just, I'm going to keep my head down. I'm not going to get involved with this. You are involved whether you like it or not, just as well as Black people. There were Black people like, I'm not going to get in part of this whole Black empowerment because we got rights on the book. There's laws and this, that, and the other. Nothing really happens until it happens to you. Even Candace Owens, out of all people. Now, this happened, a year or two ago, where she was stating prejudice and racism. Whoa, wait a minute. I thought it didn't exist. And nonetheless, she's kind of did a 180, because especially with her whole Epstein Files piece and with her Bridget Macron piece, very powerful pieces. I've been watching it. Very intelligent, beautiful Black woman, really astute, done her research, and I applaud that. But we cannot ignore prejudice and racism in America with all these different groups that turn a black eye, because the system have always been highlighting Black people as the murderers, killers, and stealers of the society. But then anytime I pop up statistics, oh, well, those numbers could be fudged by the government that's majority white, by the government that every president except for one has been white. So when the system tells on themselves, it's not true. But then we have people like Charlie Kirk stating that Black people are the majority of the crime in America, not according to the DOJ, not according to the FBI, not according to independent law enforcement agencies. We're not per capita, because again, you keep getting this 13. We're roughly anywhere between 14 to 15% of the population. And people are saying that we commit 70 or 80% of the crimes. That's not what the statistics say. So now numbers don't matter. Now we're just shooting from the hip, because again, if statistics don't matter, that tells me that your conjecture is dealing with your belief and or feelings, or the hyperbolic matter of situations that you may see on mass media, social media, and how you feel about a particular group. You can miss me with all of that. Now, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen, because I think that the move that the U.S. should take is taking over the Gaza aid effort, because President Trump has sent envoy Steve Witkoff that they're planning to lead the aid distribution in Gaza amid criticism that Israel isn't managing it properly. No, they're not. And Trump claims he doesn't like seeing babies starve, yet the plan remains controversial for potential geopolitical and humanitarian consequences. I don't think anybody likes to see babies starve. But what about this? Okay, yeah, babies, small children, adolescents, they're the most precious thing on this earth, no matter what race, creed, color, religion that they are. But people, human beings, Homo sapiens should not starve in today's society, in today's world. And after all of that, you want to send a special envoy, you want to take over the aid efforts. We may send National Guard, active duty troops to organize this aid crisis that they have in Gaza that Israel started, allegedly. Now you want to do something, but you still won't recognize Palestine as a state. Wow. That's crazy to me, folks. Because when we look at the state of Palestine, it is a fragmented land that has been divided into regions with distinct realities, yet bonded by a shared history of displacement and conflict and resilience. Why is that? The UN partition plan. And to understand its present and the heavy toil of war, we must look closely at the three main parts. You have the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, which has been demolished, and East Jerusalem. Now, the West Bank, home to over 3 million Palestinians, is a patchwork of cities, villages, and refugee camps interwoven with Israeli settlements and military checkpoints. And believe it or not, even in that area, ladies and gentlemen, life is restricted and the movement is controlled and land encroached upon, but not uniformly devastated. And the violence is sporadic, but is also less intense than in Gaza, partly because Israel maintains a different level of military engagement there, and humanitarian aid still trickles through with fewer blockades. But yet the fear and uncertainty runs deep, because again, I wonder who will stop Israel. Who will stop them? Will the United States of America stop them? I don't know, because we keep funding their efforts. Now, for nearly 2 decades, Gaza had been under an Israeli-Egyptian blockade. Its economy strangled and its infrastructure shattered. And here, war is relentless. War is relentless. In these areas, when I look at this and how there's certain countries that are playing tug of war with the region of Palestine, because again, in that, West Bank, so to speak, you have the Egyptian sort of Israeli blockade. And in that area, the economy is absolutely strangled and its infrastructure had been shattered. And I think the most important thing that I was speaking on yesterday is that the lack of open borders and scarce resources make every conflict catastrophic and trapping civilians with no safe escape. And this is the reason why Palestine needs a military. That's why they need a unifying body, an actual official government, not just this governs the West Bank, not just governs the Gaza Strip, not just governs East Jerusalem, but that governs the entire state, the entire country, the entire region of Palestine. Now, when we speak about East Jerusalem, okay, when we speak about East Jerusalem, and I just want to, again, just drive this narrative home, East Jerusalem holds a different weight when we in regards to religious, political, and symbolic. With a population of around 350,000 Palestinians, it faces evictions, demolitions, and attempts to erase Palestinian presence. Every single part of Palestine is being erased. And violence flares here too, and too often is tied to protests over sovereignty and sacred sites, yet it does not see the same level of mass bombardment as Gaza. Now, imagine a scenario where the United States steps in to take over humanitarian aid distribution in Gaza. Imagine that. Now, I understand that this dynamic would shift dramatically to wrest control from Israel or even to partner with it again, because the Israeli IDF are already in place. And the White House, Washington, they would need high-level negotiations, possibly deploying U.S. agencies like USAID or USAID as we know it, that's backed by international peacekeepers to oversee entry points and convoys. And this will mark a major geopolitical maneuver, signaling a partial decoupling of Israeli control over Gaza's lifeline. Yeah. That's what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. This is about Gaza's takeover. And we have to really look at how the U.S. leadership really could flow differently when it comes to medical supplies, food, water, as well as temporary shelters. Because right here on your screen, you can see a very small scale of the devastation that these people have been going to. There is no safe building in Gaza. All of 90% of Gaza is in rubble. It's demolished. Early part of the year, you had President Trump talking about taking over Gaza to make it beachfront property. Now you have Israel, by the way of Benjamin Netanyahu, and this is not the first time he stated this, to take over Gaza and occupy it. Now, if you take over Gaza and occupy it, what does that mean? That you're going to govern that region. So then again, Israel will be expanded to Gaza. Then Palestine will only be East Jerusalem and the West Bank. But then in those regards, they're being occupied in some form or matter as well. And when we're talking about taking over these aid efforts, when we look at the American logistical, our expertise in this realm could establish safe, distribution zones grounded by U.S. and or UN forces, making it harder for armed groups or contractors that are on ground to target civilians queuing for aid. Drones and satellite surveillance could monitor each drop-off, exposing violations instantly to the world. Like, when I look at this, I'm thinking about the humanitarian aid efforts of Haiti and how when our troops went over there, did we have live ammunition? Absolutely, we did. But we also have non-lethal ammunition as well, whether it be rubber bullets, in some regards, blanks. And then you just mark your magazines as if you have a piece of red tape on it. That's lethal weapon. You have green tape on it. That's rubber bullets and or blanks. It's very simple. And granted, it requires training. You look down, you get the right magazine. And if there's no lethal threat, why are innocent people being killed? Because they're trying to get food, shelter, and medical supplies and shelter for themselves and their family. Because we had the IDF and contractors on ground doing senseless killings. Again, this is not all inclusive because I know people will blow it out of proportion. I'm not stating all of the IDF and all of the contractors, but again, one bad apple spoils the bunch. As we're looking at this picture right here, let me blow this up for you guys. Because we've had, drones and satellite surveillance have been monitoring each drop-off, exposing violations instantly to the world. So they have worldwide coverage of what's going on with the so-called desperate measures and the lack thereof of the aid efforts in Gaza. But let me tell you, aid is not enough to stop the senseless killings at pickup spots. And the U.S. would need to enforce no fire zones. You see what I'm referring to? No fire zones, where, again, this may take all day, but with the might of the American military and our organizational skills and our logistics expertise, we can make no fire zones where even military personnel are not carrying lethal weaponry, but we will set up a wide perimeter of entry points for people to go inside certain enclaves in an organized manner if they've been checked physically and or visually, pick up their aid packages and continue out through another exit point. But not just dropping supplies and everybody and everyone is scrambling to a particular area and fighting over each other and pushing people and killing people. And then you have certain factions of the IDF and certain contractors just letting off rounds in the crowd or shooting up in the air or shooting near the ground, but nonetheless, innocent people are getting harmed and killed. We know it's not right. Even though it's not us, you wouldn't want it to be us. You wouldn't want to be a family member or a close friend. You wouldn't want it to be. So again, if the U.S. is involved in this, we need to retract. We need to retrograde our support and resources. And we probably need to, no. I won't say probably. We need to step in to ensure that these people get the aid that they need. Because we have assisted Israel in some regard in this total destruction of the Gaza Strip. This is what it is. This is what it is. We need to create these no-fire zones. And we need intel that's backed by credible threats of sanctions or military accountability against those firing on civilians. Because humanitarian convoys could be accompanied by armored protection and rapid medical response units, ensuring not just delivery, but survival for those who dare to reach for bread and water under fire. Again, this is not just logistics of what they're trying to say, that it's difficult to, for these people to have airdrops of, supplies and aid. No, it's a moral turning point. Because every mother clutching a hungry child in Gaza, every boy trapped under West Bank occupation, every family in East Jerusalem facing eviction, they are not statistics. They are voices silenced by decades of war and policy failures. And our great nation, the United States of America, were to truly step in, not as an occasional donor, but as a guarantee of safety and dignity, it could change more than aid lines. It could shift the very narrative of Palestine's suffering, offering, and at last, a path where bombs do not dictate who lives to see another day. Will the United States of America step in? Will the United States of America, will the Trump administration, will President Trump recognize Palestine as a statehood, as a country? See, this is what I referred to yesterday. And now, granted, let me modify my stance very quickly. Do they have officials? Do they have politicians in Palestine? They do. Are they unified? Are they organized? I don't believe so. That's my conjecture. Because once you form a government or a military, See, one can't go without the other. You can have political officials, but you have to have a military. Every country is recognized by their military and or national security force. You need some people in place that have lethal weapons to stop, to deter, to slow down, that act as human barriers to any threat to that region. And Palestine does not have it. They are a people who are unequipped for what Israel has, the power and might of decades of American military intelligence. By the way, the CIA connection to the Mossad, number one. Number two, military weaponry, mostly from the U.S., and some that has been made by their own hands, but nonetheless, we continue to supply these things. And this has nothing against, again, as I stated before, the terrorist act that happened. Yes, Israel had every right to defend themselves. They had every right to retaliate, because America would retaliate as well. But when do we start to say, you know what? There was over 1,100 hostages taken by Hamas, and so many Israelis have been killed. And not saying tit for tat, but we're talking about almost 50,000 people have perished because of this war that are innocent people. And that includes men, women, and children. So when is enough is enough? When does America say, you know what? Enough people have died. Enough people have suffered. We're going to recognize Palestine as a statehood, and we're going to get good people, intelligent people. And we're going to partner with France and the UK. And we don't care if they want to partner with the Westerners when it comes to resources in the region or not. But we need to create a statehood of Palestine. We need to go out who's really for the people. Who are the people? Who are the names that the people are prompting up as their leaders and their politicians? It mimics Western governments, like when you have a Senate, a Congress, and legislative, executive branch, so on, judicial branch, so on and so forth, a Supreme Court. Again, that could help organize them. And as we put certain people, assist to help people to be put in place by the way of the people of Palestine, not who we choose, but to just get them organized in a matter and start to help them to build militaries. That would be a great humanitarian effort, would it not? Because in my opinion, that's the only way that Palestine is going to receive peace and not have people to just arbitrarily, when they decide to occupy the region, because now you have a government, you have officials, you're going to have embassies, you're going to have international worldwide influence, and any resources you can garner with other countries will back by your allies of any military lack thereof that you may have. They say, well, we partner with, again, I don't want to say Iran, because again, I don't think that's a great nation for Gaza and or Palestine to partner with. But when we look at all these different Middle Eastern countries that Palestine can absolutely partner with, and I stated this just yesterday: Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. You have all of these non-terroristic nations in the Middle East that they can absolutely partner with. You can even partner with Pakistan, even though they have been, with conflict with India, but nonetheless, these are just some of the nations. And if America continues to recognize Afghanistan, but then again, you have terrorist groups in charge of that regime, they have to be very selective of the Middle Eastern countries that they partner with. But nonetheless, they can have the backings of the countries. And then again, I asked one last time, where are all of these powerful, rich Middle Eastern countries as they see their own people, whether they be tied by blood or religion, be destroyed?